Hi there, Judy Fine, creative life coach. I'm here in conversation with Deb Arthur, who is a mindful mobility and wellness coach. Full disclosure, Deb Arthur is also my big sister. Deb has a doctorate of physical education specializing in sports psychology from Springfield College. And she has spent her life gathering all kinds of experiences, from being a training athlete on a rowing team in college and after college to teaching at the university level and to being a very successful personal trainer. We decided to just sit down and talk about what we do and think out the things that are important to us. And as we were doing that, we decided to record it and maybe use this to share with other people, which here I am doing. So excuse the lack of a planned intro in our conversation. Enjoy this part one where Deb shares with me what she does and why she does it.
Give me an example of who would be an ideal client for you.
My whole thing is about getting people to trust their bodies and themselves again. So a lot of times people that come to me have an injury or some kind of ache and pain in their body, and they've tried different things and they haven't really found the way to relieve that discomfort or move in a way that feels better. I mean, I've had people come to me that have had surgery and they have this sort of lingering pain from it, even though they've done physical therapy and gone to the doctor, and they just, what happens in our bodies when we have some kind of trauma or surgery is that we learn to move in a different way to protect that area or to protect the place where we've been traumatized. And when we do that, we start using our muscles in our body in a different way. And that can create more aches and pains than need to be there. But what people do is they say, it's because I had that accident, or it's because I had that surgery. So everything that hurts is because of that, or because of my condition, or because of...
Which stops people from seeking out a solution.
Yeah, or they just, in some ways, they assume they're always going to feel that way. Mm-hmm. But when they come to me, it's because they want to exercise again. My greatest joy in working with people is when they have those like aha moments, like, oh, hey, that doesn't hurt anymore, or, oh, it feels good when I use these muscles, or I actually can stand up from a chair without having pain in my knees, or, wow, I can walk and my hips feel open, So to me, that's like, wow, that person just realized that they actually can feel better and can trust their body again.
And you did that for them. You helped them realize that.
I'm a facilitator of it, yeah. Everything we do as practitioners, we're facilitators, right?
Absolutely.
That person has to be open to making the change and allowing that. It takes a certain mindfulness, doesn't it? They have to like tune in and go, oh, I've been thinking this way or moving this way, and I'm open to trying another option.
Yeah, and that can go really deep because we make decisions about ourselves even while we're growing up. I'm a clumsy person. I'm not athletic. I have 2 left feet, or whatever the phrases are.
And you'll hear a lot of women will say stuff like that too. And I've always been clumsy. I've had all these injuries and all this trauma in my life, and now I'm broken. And even sometimes it doesn't have to be a great degree of issues that have been in somebody's life. They just have it in their head that for some reason they're not whole.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting that we have that emotionally too? Like there's just, some of us grow up learning that we're somehow inherently flawed.
Exactly.
Just as people. Yeah.
And that people experience that in their minds. They experience it in their hearts and bodies as well. And you can tell yourself repeatedly, I know I'm a good person. I know I can do that. Right. But if you don't really feel that inside yourself, it's a different situation. So you can tell yourself, but you got to get to the place of feeling it inside yourself, which is your body.
Right. So you help people sort of manifest these emotional things into something tangible in a way.
Yeah, that does happen. That's, I don't tell people that's what's going to happen, but what happens is you get more tuned into your body. You start to connect more deeply into the feelings and the energy that lives in your tissue. It sounds a little hocus pocus, but if you think about it, it's about the nervous system. So I remember working with somebody years ago who had been rear-ended in a car. And when I watched her move, I could see her doing this a lot. Her body was remembering that sensation of being like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to work with how to relax her shoulders and neck and be in her lower body and etc.
Interesting.
So, and you don't think about it, right? It becomes a subconscious habit. Or somebody will hurt their knee and it'll shift how they're walking. And now they're no longer in their left leg or their left quad or their glute, but they don't even realize it because they've developed this new pattern that becomes the norm.
And then you could have back problems or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think in our culture, we're very conditioned to look for experts, and sometimes we need those experts like you and me. but what I'm saying is that, well, the doctor told me I need to lose weight. Well, they told me that I have arthritis. These are the things I hear all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I have arthritis. And I'll say, well, why don't we try some stretching, some myofascial release, some reorganizing of how you move your body, like get you into different muscles. And then let's see how your knees feel or your hip feels. Because I like when people come with a diagnosis too, because if somebody has a torn meniscus, they're going to have the surgeon take care of that. But but if I can have a sense of where their body's at and we have a diagnosis, it's much easier for me. But this whole thing, this is a big thing for me too, is when people go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, you have arthritis. And I'll say,
now what?
Yeah. I said, that doesn't mean, I say, I actually have bone degeneration in my thoracic spine from all my years of rowing. It doesn't bother me because I move and I strengthen. And so we can, even if unless you're getting major inflammation in a joint, then we have to be careful. But if you're talking about like your lower back is tight, is that arthritis? I'm not saying it's not, but you can still strengthen and release. And
even if it is arthritis, learn to do things to decrease it. It's kind of like saying, I get angry when people look at me a certain way, and it's because my father used to look at me that way. So now nobody's allowed to look at me that way. Like, that's not why you discover why something makes you angry. You discover it so you can sort of transform that and not let that make you angry anymore. And it's the same thing. You don't discover that you have arthritis as a way to be like, okay, I'll just be in pain forever. Thank you.
But it's an understanding. It's a good understanding to have, right? What the roots of our feelings and emotions are and our perspective, and also what the roots of our body discomfort are.
Exactly.
Because sometimes we do have to go get surgery. I had a client whose hip was we tried everything. And I'm like, you have to go to the doctor and go talk about a hip replacement, and that breaks my heart because I don't want people to have to do that.
Right.
And you know what? She did it and she was as happy as a lark because she could continue with her golf and her tennis. But a lot of times surgery is not what's needed. What's needed is releasing muscle, using the muscles that are necessary in that movement, and finding flow and ease in our body.
Right.
And in the medical model, that's not what's taught generally. There are some outstanding doctors and physical therapists out there, don't get me wrong. But in general, that's not the medical model to teach people how to find ease and flow in their body.
Right. Now, people come to you maybe initially for that, and that's like a fire that you help them put out. But that can expand into more just looking at their lives, right?
It does. It depends where a person wants to go with it. Some people don't need to or don't want to go in that direction. But that's actually how I've worked with a lot of people, is they come to me because this hurts or they want to get more fit. And then we start evolving into these other things where I'm teaching them journaling and we're doing more life coaching stuff.
Yeah.
So because what happens in the mind is connected to what happens in the body and vice versa.
Right.
We are multidimensional beings. We are dynamic beings. We're not just the head or just the body. What's interesting is I've had experiences with people where we're working on like a release movement, or maybe I'm like giving them like a gentle traction in their hip or something, and tears flow because something lets go. And that's where, healers will talk about the emotions and the energy being caught in the tissue. And I do believe that. I also know that there's a nervous system thing at play here, because something that was a fear gets locked up in that body because we keep holding on there because we're afraid we're going to hurt it again. So there's a locking up of the tissue which is done by our brain. And then when you gently remind the body it can let go, it's like
Right.
those feelings and thoughts and nervous system responses are like, oh, it's a really, I got to tell you, those are the moments where I go, this is why I do this.
Yeah.
If I was a millionaire, I would still do that.
Yeah.
I would still do that work.
So if somebody out there has some kind of chronic pain or is recovering from an injury, or who else, you should give you a call right now and do a consultation.
Sometimes people have gotten to a place where they don't necessarily have a specific injury. Like I had one client say to me, I just want to be able to pick my grandson up off the floor.
Yeah.
And if she's listening right now, I love you very much. And
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. It was more about getting her to feel grounded in her muscles. And we did a bunch of different kinds of movements and exercises just to get her to feel strong getting up off the floor. And so sometimes it's just about quality of life. It's just about functioning in daily life. And I'm a strong proponent of strength training unless we're in our 20s or our teens and we want to train for the Olympics, or we're a competitive athlete, that's a little different. But for most of us, especially getting older, what we're training for is functioning in our lives. And strengthening our muscles and knowing how to move in an efficient way and with flow and ease as well is important for just functioning in life.
Gotcha. So older people who are maybe noticing that some everyday functions aren't quite what they were and who would like to maintain that for as long as possible.
And we know that strength training is important in terms of reducing muscle atrophy, which we need our muscles so that we continue with being balanced and not falling and stuff as we get older. So there's that concept as well. What's interesting is it tends to probably be people in their 50s and older, but I had a client once in her 40s that I helped with how to get up off the floor. So it's an age thing, but it's also just what are you doing with your body and your life thing.
Lifestyle,
too.
Yeah,
lifestyle. Yeah. Are you strengthening? Are you exercising? Are you moving? Let me just add this in that I was talking to one of my clients who's in her 60s, and I've made this decision that what's a really important theme is letting our 60s be a time of power and wisdom. And 50s and 60s and beyond. But it's like, I think of it as the power 60s, because a lot of times when we get into our 60s, I think that's when we start thinking, oh my goodness, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can't do what I used to do. Well, so let's find our power where we're at.
Yeah. Well, that's great stuff. Thank you for doing that, Deb.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of our conversation. I hope you will check out part 2, where I talk about what I do and what's important to me as a creative life coach.